there's greater consequence by violating your core integrity, your core values, than anything anybody could do to you.
Take a look at the situations that you have going on in your life, whether it's your work life, your personal life, your family life, your community. Are you showing up with integrity more often than you're not?
How do the values you have influence your decision making? How you decide to show up, how you decide to act or respond? And are there some that we need to work on?
Welcome back to Unapologetic Rabble-Rousers. I'm DocShellie.
And I'm Carla. We're carrying on with our conversation around integrity. We just spent a little bit of time talking about what do we really mean by integrity. It feels like the right time for us to get into, let's work on developing integrity. Let's understand the components of it and things we can do to test ourselves on the level of integrity that we're bringing into all of our engagements, transactions, communications, thoughts, words, and deeds. So we're going to start with something that is near and dear to your heart.
Would that be self-awareness?
It would be.
And self-reflection?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's so important to be aware of your own integrity, your core values, how they show up for you, how sometimes they don't show up for you, where they may be stretched. Sometimes certain people challenge your core values or your integrity, certain situations. And just having that self-awareness can really help you stay in integrity. It can help you really understand how important it is. And I think it helps you regulate some of your own emotions too. When people press on your integrity or press on your core values.
Just back to some of the boundary talk we did in our last segment.
Yeah.
Talking about keeping self safe. So understanding those boundaries and being able to use that understanding in managing one's integrity.
Yeah. It's so funny as we're talking about this at a company I worked at many, many years ago, there was a senior leader who liked to create chaos. A lot of chaos. I don't do chaos. And it was to the point where it was impacting my team. And my team was talking about this person and how rude he was and how mean he was and how unrealistic he was and all these things, to the point that they weren't getting their work done. So I talked to my boss. I might have already shared the story. I talked to my boss and he said, I'm not going to go talk to him. Everyone really feared this guy. And I crossed a point where it was like, I can't do this anymore because I'm finding myself butting right up against my core values. Mm-hmm. And the expectation of potentially violating those was not okay with me. So my 20-something-year-old self marched into the senior executive's office and said, can we talk? And we had a conversation about the impact he was having on the team and why I thought it was wrong and all the things. And he listened, which I thought was amazing because I didn't even think we'd get that far. And he said, I hear what you're saying, but I don't care. I'm going to continue to operate the way I operate because I like to operate in chaos. I think it causes people to rise. And I thought, okay, well, you have a very different operating system than I do.
Wow.
So I went back to my team and I shared with them, this is what I said. Well, first I saw my boss and he said, you didn't get fired? I said, no. But that for me it was so rubbing up against my integrity, my core values, that I didn't care if I got fired or not.
And when you are true to your core, those consequences there's greater consequence by violating your core integrity, your core values, than anything anybody could do to you.
So when I went back to my team and I shared with them what had happened, they were so grateful that I had the conversation. I told them, we've got to figure this out because he's not going to change and we can't let him impact how we operate. We're a high-performing team, and we need to continue to be a high-performing team, regardless of what he's trying to do to either dismantle us or get in our way, throw up roadblocks. We got this. And boy, did that team turn around. with their attitudes, just like they had been before this guy became our leader, our senior leader. But they respected the fact that I went to bat for them.
Yes.
Because that was part of my core value, my integrity. So like when it comes down to that point where you feel like I have no choice because I'm not going to violate my values, and that's what you're asking me to do. I probably could have handled it a little bit differently. I mean, I was in my 20s. I didn't know what I know now, but it all worked. And after that conversation, this guy had a ton of respect for me that he did not have before.
When you're clear on the values,
yeah,
even the hard things aren't hard because your strength comes from having that awareness.
Right.
And what's more important right now?
Exactly.
Giving in,
right,
or remaining strong. And,
right.
And you weren't doing it just for you.
No.
You were doing it as a representative of all the people who look to you for leadership.
Right. Right.
And he got a little dose of a leadership lesson from you, your 20-something self.
Yeah.
Congratulations to you. It didn't stop there, did it?
No. It often doesn't.
No. So a lot of this awareness then, though, comes from the self-reflection that we've talked about before. Yeah. And while we did cover off some ideas about how to do that self-reflection, we wanted to revisit just to give a refresher, perhaps add a little bit more spice to the sauce. So journaling was one that you have talked about a great deal.
Yes, I journal almost every day, sometimes twice a day. So when you think about journaling around your core values and your integrity, think about what are those definitions for you? We all define them a little bit differently. So what does integrity mean for you? And what core values are really part of that integrity? For me, it's honesty, respect, trust, consistency, kindness, I think are the things that really, for me, make up my type of integrity. Mm-hmm. And I'm always a champion of the underdog. So I think that falls into my integrity as well. And then take a look at the situations that you have going on in your life, whether it's your work life, your personal life, your family life, your community, whatever it is, and see, are you showing up with integrity more often than you're not showing up? Hopefully you're showing up a lot more with integrity than not. Sometimes we're in situations where it's hard to be filled with integrity. Mm-hmm. So really think about for yourself, what does that look like? How are you showing up? How would people describe your integrity? If you were to ask your best friend, when do you think I show integrity? And how does that show up? It'd be an interesting conversation, but something you could continue to journal on as well.
And that gets to the point of asking for feedback, really. It's getting a view of you through somebody else's eyes. Mm-hmm. And being able to use that to take a look at where you have strength and where there may be opportunities for you to get stronger.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So think about if there have been challenges that you've faced recently, how'd you do? How did you respond? How did it feel when you were done? Then if you're going to journal, you're probably doing more thinking than you might be doing journaling right now, but you need to set time aside to really reflect on your day and what worked, what didn't, what went well. Did I face any challenging situations, and how did I do? How would I grade myself? How did my actions align with my values, my core principles? Mm-hmm. And what can I take from that? It's every day's filled with lessons to be learned.
Yes, and it's important to look at those because we can learn from the challenging situations. We can learn from the wins. We can learn from the losses. There's always an opportunity to learn and grow from any situation. So that daily reflection, which I kind of journal on some of that. So you could do it as thought work. You could do it as journaling. It's really important to just get to the end of the day, especially when you're thinking about integrity. How did I show up today? What was the impact I had on others? was the impact I had on me.
Recently, I've been hearing lessons that are being taught by parents to their children without there being, it's not the focus, but there's this event. There's a something, and the child, seated oftentimes in the back seat, is just observing how mom or dad or whoever is in charge handles a challenge. Being pulled over for, say, a traffic violation, or somebody's rude to you in the checkout line or whatever. Every single one of those interactions leaves an impression. Mm-hmm. And it shows, it helps that child develop what they're going to become, the rules that they're going to use to rule their life. The rules to rule, but the ground rules, the basic core, this is what's right and this is what's wrong. They pick so much of that up just through observation. And so even there, mm-hmm. in front of your children, how's the integrity doing when somebody's watching and you don't even think about that? So if we're going to reflect and we're going to journal, it suggests that the learning comes from really visualizing what was going on. How would I have done it differently? Or if I know I'm coming up on a conversation or an engagement of some sort, being able to consider what are the thoughts I have going into this, kind of unfiltered. You may be excited, you may be a little bit hesitant, but being able to visualize how you're going to be strong, how you are going to show up in that situation.
Yeah, and it may be aligning the right actions and behaviors and the words, and it might be coming in strong, it might be coming in soft with empathy, not soft, but like with empathy, or we want to enter situations differently depending on the situation. So just thinking that through and thinking what the challenges might be and how will I, as a person of integrity, manage those challenges that might come up.
And I want to tie this back to part of what we talked about in terms of accountability, that the first 30 seconds of the conversation dictates what's going to come from that conversation. And what is your intention? So as we would speak about envisioning what's going to be happening in whatever amount of time, being able to understand your intention in that. Mm-hmm. Having considered that, imagine engaging in something that you are maybe not all that much looking forward to, but having thought through this, the very different presence you'll have. Mm-hmm. So visualize what it is that you're going to bring, how it is you're going to be strong and aligned with your true values. And speaking of values, so we had a little fun. We asked ChatGPT if you were to provide a list of common values, what might they be? So I want to share this list with you. It's a good list. It's not complete. And it would be great if in the comments you might share some of the things that resonated or some of the things that you found were missing from this particular list. So, honesty, integrity, respect, responsibility, compassion, empathy, fairness, trustworthiness, and loyalty. Now, we have touched on a number of these things already, just in the past few segments that we've done.
Absolutely.
Then it moves to accountability, courage, perseverance, generosity, and gratitude, humility, authenticity, kindness, open-mindedness, optimism, and your favorite, patience. So do you think about that? How do the values you have influence your decision-making? How you decide to show up, how you decide to act or respond. And Are there some that we need to work on?
I think everyone probably has one or two that they could work on. Not that I speak from experience.
All that reflection. Huh?
But really think about, is there something that you want to do more of? Which doesn't mean you have to do less of something else when you think about core values and integrity. But I joke that patience is not a core value of mine. I am not a patient person at all, particularly when I'm driving in my car.
Oh, no.
I don't like when people don't follow the rules. Except for the speed limit. You should go over the speed limit a little bit.
It has nothing to do with integrity.
But patience, well, but if you think about, it could, right? Because if I declare that patience is a core value of mine and it wraps itself up into integrity, and I'm behind somebody who's going 25 in a 35, and I'm chomping at the bit and I'm cursing them in my head and maybe doing other things, that then impacts the integrity that I'm supposed to be displaying. So, not that I do all of those things, but patience is hard for me. So I don't necessarily wrap that up into my operating system. Kindness, yes. I've had this conversation with so many leaders. You can be kind and still be tough on somebody. You can be kind and still have a difficult conversation. You can lead with kindness. And so many people don't think that you can do that, because if you're kind, you're soft and people will take advantage of you. And I thought, kindness is one of my core values, and I feel like I display that most of the time really well. And it's never gotten in my way of being an effective leader, even when I've had tough conversations. And I have had some really tough conversations over the years.
It also brings back mutual respect, which we spent some time on as well.
Absolutely.
If you're going to come from a place of mutual respect, being tough and being kind are not mutually exclusive.
Right. Right.
We talked also a little bit back during this segment about feedback. And you had suggested, ask your friend, so when you see me showing up with integrity, what does that really look like? Mm-hmm. You might want to ask. Reflect on you through other people's eyes. I just had a really interesting experience with that. There's an article that's going to be published that it involves me. And I have never stopped to look at myself through the eyes of other people. This article was developed and forwarded to me for comment. And it was like, oh my gosh. So ask people around you. I really want to have a serious conversation about how I show up.
So I remember when we worked together a few years ago, we were doing something and you needed an introduction for me, and I don't think I gave it to you. And so you were like, well, this is what I wrote. This is what I wrote. I don't remember all the words, but I laughed. I said, I couldn't have written that better myself. I thought it was so funny and so perfect.
I remember the event.
And I thought it was fun. It was fun to see how, as a colleague, like how you saw me and what you respected. And I just thought it was really fun.
You never know. You might just have a really good time with this.
You might be pleasantly surprised.
Yes. Let that be a possibility. We've talked about reflection, and we've talked about asking for feedback, and we've talked about values. It's really about being mindful of those things.
Yeah, and I think being mindful in the moment and trying not to judge yourself. And trying, like, harshly, don't judge yourself harshly, and don't judge other people harshly, and just being present in that moment and accepting that moment for what it is really important.
Mm-hmm. But how would you explain mindfulness?
I think just being aware of the situation, the impact that it has on you and other people, and how you're feeling. What senses are you having in that moment? And is there an opportunity to course correct? Are we honoring our integrity and our core values? Sometimes we're in situations with people and we have different core values. We have different integrity. We have different levels of integrity. So being mindful of that can be really helpful in a situation to help you stay out of judgment and say that person's honoring their core values that are different from mine, and I could look at this as a learning opportunity, I think is really helpful. And then when I think about mindfulness too, I do a lot of meditation. And so that always helps me just clear my head and be present.
Sounds like a good thing to do when you're driving behind that 25-mile-an-hour person.
Oh, I do a lot of deep breathing in my car. Or I just jam on some good old music.
Okay. All right. So we're looking at that, and it's an example of the kinds of things that might be challenges to maintaining one's integrity.
Yes. This is kind of a funny story. My friend Anne will appreciate this. I've shared this before when we've taught Crucial Conversations. So I was in a parking lot one time, and somebody was driving very fast in this parking lot and knocked over my cart. They almost hit me, but knocked over my cart. And in that moment, I picked up an apple and I chucked it at the back of the car, and it hit the window and the apple split. And there was a lady standing next to me, and she went, "Wow, you have a hell of an arm." And I thought, what is wrong with you that you would do that? But I was so mad, and this person just kept driving.
Oh, really?
And I wanted to get their attention.
Take that.
I may have said a few choice words when I threw the apple, but another gentleman saw it, and he first asked me if I was okay because my cart fell over. I didn't, but the cart did. And then he said, that was a pretty good shot. Those snap judgments in times of adversity can be a challenge sometimes.
So I guess it's really important to recognize this and acknowledge that those things can and do happen.
Yes.
And just hope that you have good aim.
Now, had he stopped and we could have had a conversation about it, it would have been fine, but he never stopped.
That's just odd. Somebody would, that's scary odd, really. All right. So we've talked about we've talked about things that we could do to attend to integrity and building it, developing it. So we've talked about boundaries. We've talked about values. We've talked about seeking feedback or even assistance with those challenges to integrity from trusted people, mentors or friends or colleagues.
And I think it's important when we ask for feedback that we consider it, we listen to it, we thank people for providing it, and consider. You may not agree with the feedback that you get, which is fine. You don't have to agree with it, but give it some consideration, because that is a perception that at least one person has of you, your core values, your integrity, your behaviors. It's worth considering whether you agree with it or not. And if you do agree with it, then do some more journaling and self-reflecting to think about how can you show more of that behavior? How can you correct whatever it is that they think is that you maybe don't display well? And think about prioritizing your core values and really define them for yourself. Everyone's core value is honesty and integrity. I think. I don't know. That is not a scientific fact, but most people I talk to, honesty comes up when they talk about integrity or core values, and integrity comes up. But if I ask you to define honesty, and I defined it, it might be two different definitions. I know a lot of people do little white lies. Well, how does that fit into your definition and your core value of honesty? Kindness sometimes overweights honesty, because if you are dressed in a horrific outfit, I might not come out and say, "Oh my God, what are you thinking? That's the worst outfit I've ever seen." I would do it with a little bit of kindness, and I still might say, "You probably shouldn't wear that," but I'm not going to tell you, "You look like whatever." So the honesty and kindness for me sometimes combat each other as a core value. Because I want to be kind. I also want to be honest.
Right.
And I most of the time can do both of those things.
It's a part, it gets to that respect.
Yeah. Right.
And boundaries.
Yeah.
And listening.
But just even think about every day. Hi, how are you? I'm fine. I'm not fine today. I just lied to you. I was not honest with you. So look, how deep is your honesty? What is your definition of honesty? So I would really encourage you as listeners to think about your core values and how do you define them? And you probably haven't done that thought work in a while. It's really important to think about, how does this show up for me on a daily basis? What do I mean when I say honesty is a core value? What do I mean when I say integrity is a core value? Whatever your core values are, define them for yourself. And that way you can hold yourself accountable to them. If they're not defined, you can let it slip anytime, anywhere, any day. I went on a little rant.
No, it was a great rant, a great rap as well. I'm Carla.
I'm DocShellie. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. What do I mean when I say honesty is a core value? What do I mean when I say integrity is a core value? Whatever your core values are, define them for yourself, and that way you can hold yourself accountable to them. If they're not defined, you can let it slip anytime, anywhere, any day.